Only 29 Power 4 teams still have a shot to make the college football playoff as we continue to eliminate teams. First rankings come out tonight. Maybe that changes something here in this video, but it would take a major surprise of those rankings to change my thoughts on the teams and who has a chance to still make it into the college football playoff. So let's start with the eliminations. We had already eliminated all these teams, and again, we're just talking about the Power 4 teams. I will be talking about the Group of 5 at the end. Previously eliminated a bunch of Power 4 teams here, and this week we eliminate California, Kansas State, Nebraska, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest. So, Virginia Tech and Wake Forest had an outside chance to win the ACC. That was their only chance. Tennessee, actually, if they had won out, they would have been in. Nebraska probably would have been in. Cal, they also, like Virginia Tech and Wake Forest, would have had to have some help and somehow win the ACC. And then Kansas State would have needed some help to win the Big 12. Tennessee is the big, I think, elimination here. I don't think any of the other teams had a real shot. Tennessee, again, had a great shot if they were able to win that game against Oklahoma. Now, I don't think their schedule is going to be strong enough at 9-3. Now, I do think there are some SEC teams that could get in at 9-3, but I don't think Tennessee is one of them. I just don't think the resume will be strong enough. So they are now out of it. Now we can go to the teams that are still alive, and we look at the teams that must win their conference. I do not see a path for these teams to get into the playoff without winning their conference. Arizona State has to win out, in my opinion. I don't think a 10-2 Arizona State's going to be good enough. The resume is just not going to be good enough. Cincinnati has to win out. Again, 10-2 Big 12 teams are going to have a really hard time getting in. Duke got to win the ACC. Georgia Tech, now they've got to win out. Now, they didn't before. They've moved here because, and I say win out, I mean win the conference, although they probably have to win out regardless. Well, no, the Georgia game doesn't matter. So, yeah, I shouldn't say win out, but win the conference. They were in a spot that they had a real shot to get in as an at-large if they were able to win out in the ACC, even with the loss to Georgia. But now that they've lost to NC State, they've got to win the ACC. Houston's got to win the Big 12. Louisville, I think, has to win the ACC. With the way their schedule plays out the rest of the way, I don't think that there's a way that they can lose, or I should say, can win out and not make it to the ACC championship. So again, you're going to have to win that. I guess there's a chance Louisville at 11-1, they lose a really close game, but probably not going to get in. Pitt, same scenario. SMU, TCU out of the Big 12, Utah out of the Big 12, Virginia in the ACC. This is the team. Virginia is actually the only unbeaten remaining team in conference play in the ACC, because that game that they played where they lost earlier in the year, that was a non-conference game. So I know Virginia, NC State, those are ACC teams, but they scheduled that game outside of the conference. It was a non-conference game. And so Virginia, they're in the driver's seat, really, in the ACC. We'll see if they can win out, or if they lose a game, will it be enough to get them in? If they win the tiebreaker, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. All right, here are the teams that still have a chance to get in as an at-large team. I don't think they have to win their conference. Alabama, BYU, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Miami. Miami's a long shot, but they could still have a pretty strong resume when all is said and done. Missouri, I'm really interested to see where they're going to be ranked, because they're not going to have a chance at a very good, well, yeah, I guess they could have a good chance at a resume, because they're going to get Texas A&M. So that could be a signature win for them if they're able to win that game. Michigan, of course, has a chance to beat Ohio State late in the year, and that's probably going to get them in. Ohio State, obviously, still here. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is interesting, because even at 9-3, I think there is a chance they could get in, but at 10-2, they're definitely in. Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, USC. So Texas Tech probably needs to win out and lose the Big 12 championship, and hope that would be enough to get them in. I don't know if it would be. I think they would have a little bit of a stronger resume than Louisville, especially when you look at the injuries that they've had, and if they're healthy at the end of the season, I think the committee could look at that. USC, they've got a tough schedule, but if they can knock off Oregon, watch out for USC. Vanderbilt, if they win out, maybe and probably they get in at 10-2. They'll have a win over Tennessee to close out the year. And then Washington is still alive, and that's another team I'm curious to see where they are ranked, if they are ranked, with these first rankings tonight. So those teams are still alive in the Group of 5. This is really the teams that are still alive. you got your American teams. I got those listed first. East Carolina, yes, East Carolina. They've only got one conference loss. No one's talking about them. Memphis, Navy, North Texas, Tulane, and South Florida. These appeared, these teams all have a chance to win the American. What's crazy is you go to the Mountain West, San Diego State's only got one loss, but every other team has at least 3 losses. So San Diego State is really the only team, in my opinion, that has a shot to come out of there. And I say no other teams. I'm thinking UNLV might have 2 losses. I know Boise State is actually next in the conference standings, and they've got 3 losses, but a couple of those were actually non-conference losses. So I don't think a 3-loss Mountain West team could get in. And yeah, UNLV is actually 6-2, but they're not going to have a strong enough resume. They've lost back-to-back games. So yeah, I don't think there's another team out of the Mountain West. James Madison, if there's no one else to put in and they win out and they've only got 1 loss, I think James Madison will be that team. So very interesting to see how this is going to play out with these group of 5 teams. Now I will show you what the playoff will look like, not today, but what it will look like if the favorites win out. This is not a prediction. This is not where the teams are today. This is assuming all the favorites went out. I did look up the future spreads for some of these games because it was very, very close, and I didn't know who would be favored. For example, Louisville SMU. That's one that could determine the ACC. It's Louisville on the road at SMU. I thought SMU might be favored there. Looked at it right now, and this could change right now. Louisville is favored by 1, and that's why I've got them in the winning out and winning the ACC. So Ohio State should win out. I think they probably finish at number 1. Alabama will be favored in the rest of their games. I think Vegas favors them over Texas A&M, but I don't know. That'll be a really interesting point spread. We'll see how it plays out. Indiana should be favored in every game except for the Big Ten Championship, and Texas A&M I think is going to be favored. Now, that's another one. Will Texas A&M be favored against Texas? Because if they are not, then that's going to change things, and that's actually possibly going to get Texas in at 9-3 if they come off that season-ending win over Texas A&M. So there are a lot of different scenarios that could play out. Obviously, I think Georgia will be favored in the rest of their games. Ole Miss will be favored in the rest of their games. Texas Tech at 7, Oregon at 8. Louisville, just talked about them out of the ACC. I think they're going to be favored in their games. That SMU one is the one that I think could go the other way. We'll see what Vegas does when we get to that point. Notre Dame will be favored in their games. BYU, Cincinnati, that's the game. So we know Texas Tech will be favored against BYU. BYU also has to play on the road at Cincinnati. BYU is actually, I think, a 1-point favorite in that game. So that one little point spread makes a difference, because if BYU is not favored there, then I think this might go to a 9-3 Texas team. So BYU, as of right now, if they can beat Texas Tech, and if they lose to Texas Tech, beat Cincinnati, and then lose in the Big 12 championship, I think they still might get in. But we'll see. It's going to be close. And then South Florida, I think, is the team out of the group of 5. Maybe that's Memphis. Again, I don't know who would be favored in a rematch, but I think those 2 teams definitely do wind up in the American Championship. And again, I think South Florida might be favored there, but it could be Memphis. So take your pick for that number 12 spot. So that's the updated playoff picture. Again, maybe this will look a little bit different when the rankings come out tonight. After we have a week of rankings, then obviously that may shift some things for next week's video. But that's the current playoff picture, in my opinion. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below.